Was Ragam Saraswati. I'm really honored to be a part of this festival that celebrates Vadhyams. We have always seen gods playing on instruments. Krishna played the flute, Saraswati the Veena, Shiva the Damaru. I'm not sure which god sang. We go on with this story of this wonderful instrument. So, Veenayoda story நம்ம பார்க்கும்போது you can actually trace the story of Indian classical music. The story of Veena is almost parallel to the story of Indian classical music. To start with, the first slide that we see is music is divinity. Nammaloda culture la we have always thought of nadopasana. The easiest way to reach God we have considered is through music. We have the Saptaswara Devatas. We have them with their dhanyams, their vastrams and everything. We have the Saptaswara Shlokam. Romba varshakanaka tapas panni கிடைக்காதது ஒரு நல்ல ராகத்தையோ ஒரு நல்ல கிருதியோ பக்தியோட ஸ்ருதி சேர்ந்து பாடினா இட் இஸ் தி ஈஸியஸ்ட் பாத் டு மோக்ஷம் அப்படின்னு சொல்லியிருக்கு. அதில் வீணையில் வீணா வாதன தத்வஜ்ஞா ஸ்ருதி ஜாதி விஷாரதः தாளஜானச அப்ரயசேன மோக்ஷ மார்க்கம் ச கச்சதி. எப்படி வாசிக்கணுமோ அப்படி வாசித்தா தாளம் பெசராமல் ராகம் பெசராமல் சாஸ்திரோத்திரமாக வாசித்தோன்னா மோக்ஷத்துக்கு அதுதான் ஸ்ட்ரெயிட் சால்வேஷனுக்கு பாத். இப்போது people may ask, what if I don't want moksham? So music always has a 3E formula. One, at a very superficial level, like Radhaji said, entertainment. The next is education. You like to know more about it. And the third E is the elevation, which you reach, or enlightenment, after a particular point. So we go on and find out, we all know the creator, Brahma, from whom originated goddess Saraswati. Brahmaoda significance நிறையா இருக்குது இந்த ஸ்டோரி ஆஃப் வீணையில். We'll come to that later. So goddess Saraswati அப்படின்னு நம்ம பார்க்கும்போது we have always seen her with a veena in her hand, with Vedam in one hand and the rosary beads signifying meditation in one hand. So what is the significance of these four hands? One is manasu, the mind. The other is buddhi, the intellect. The other is chitta, that is creativity. And the fourth is ahankara, the ego. Ego need not necessarily mean in a negative way, but a self, consciousness of the self is also being aware, is also ego. So the 4 hands of Goddess Saraswati signifies this. Exactly like that, whatever Saraswati symbolizes, the Veena, like Saraswati, represents wisdom, represents beauty and musical grace. நீங்கள் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா வீணையை பற்றி பாடாத இதிகாசம் புராணம் கிடையாது. லலிதா சஹஸ்ரநாமம்ல நிஜ சல்லாப மாதுரிய வினிர்பச்சத கச்சபி, கச்சபிங்கிறது சரஸ்வதி வாசிச்ச வீணை. ஸோ தெர் இஸ் அ மென்ஷன் ஆஃப் தட். மாணிக்ய வீணாம் உபலாலயந்தி காளிதாசார் பாடியிருக்கார். வீணா வேணு மிருதங்க வாத்திய ரசிகாம், மீனாட்சி பஞ்சரத்னத்தில் ஆதிசங்கரர் கம்போஸ் பண்ணியிருக்கார். ஆதிசங்கரர் வீணை வாசிச்சிருக்கார், தட்சிணாமூர்த்தி அவர் வாசிச்சிருக்கார், ராவணேஸ்வரன் வாசிச்சிருக்கார், ராகவேந்திர சுவாமி வாசிச்சிருக்கார், மகாபெரிவா வாசிச்சிருக்கா. யார் வாசிக்கல வீணையை? ஸோ இட் ஹஸ் பீன் கன்சிடர்ட் as an instrument which is so esoteric and so spiritual. We'll just see in a bit why. So what is this thing called Veena? வீணைன்னு நம்ம ரொம்ப வருஷமாக சொல்லின்னு இருக்கிற 2000 இயர்ஸாக சொல்லின்றோமே, அது இந்த வீணையா? இல்லை. வான்யந்தே இதி வீணா. Anything that can be played is a veena. So perhaps the first veena, when the hunter had a bow and he was plucking the string of that bow, அந்த ஒரு twang கேட்டிருக்கும். That would have been the first, veena, dhanur, the bow and the string twanging on it. A hunter would have heard that and he would have tightened the string and the pitch would have increased or decreased. I have read that the first ever veena a cave man made was made using a human skull as a resonator and a bamboo stick stuck on it, and narambu was used as a string. And do you know what was used as a bridge? The nose in the skull. The skull with a bamboo and a narambu going over it. That must have been quite a sight. And அப்படி தான் first ever veena was made. Any string instrument. இப்போது we have veenas from 1 string to 100 strings. ekatari veena shatatantri veena, santur is also called a veena, to 100 strings. Any string instrument is called a veena. If you want to know about the origin and evolution, there are many theories to it. Some mythological, some historical, some etymological. The earliest references we have are in the Samaveda period, where we have a mention of a veena called Adambari. As the men folk were reciting Samaveda, their wives, who were called Yajamanis, were playing on this veena called Adambari, and the strings were made out of grass. Now these types of veenas were strum panni. It's not played with frets appo varala, so they were strumming it. This is the first mention in the Samaveda period that we have of veena. Now when you talk about instruments, we have monochord instruments and polychord instruments. What is a monochord instrument and what is a polychord instrument? A monochord instrument, we will come to that. Let's first deal with polychord instruments. Polychord instrument is an instrument that has several strings and you can play harmony on it. You know, the sagoda yaal, makara yaal, and this harp that you see, adula vandu pala strings irukku. So இதில் வந்து நீங்கள் கமக்கம் வாசிக்க முடியாது, but you can play as an accompaniment to vocal. You can strum it along with someone who is singing and just play along with it. Polychord instruments, you can see it huge sizes. They used to come in shipலாம் வச்சுருப்பா, huge polychord instruments. You can see a picture in the previous slide. You can see that picture of that huge harp like thing with multiple strings. ஸோ பாலிகார்ட் அப்படின்னு ஏன் சொல்கிறது, யூ கேன் கீப் எனி திங் ஆஸ் சா, த கார்ட்ஸ் வில் கீப் ஷிஃப்டிங், பாலிகார்ட் இன்ஸ்ட்ருமெண்ட்ஸ். ஸோ ஆஃப் ஆல் த பாலிகார்ட் இன்ஸ்ட்ருமெண்ட்ஸ் அதெல்லாம் எக்ஸ்டிங்க்ட் ஆகிடுது. இன்றைக்கி த டூ தட் வி ஹாவ் இஸ் சந்தூர் அண்ட் ஸ்வரமண்டல். இது ரெண்டு மட்டும்தான் வி ஹாவ் பாலிகார்ட் இன்ஸ்ட்ருமெண்ட்ஸ் தட் வி ஹாவ். நவ் monochord instruments. Monochord instrumentsல it will be that which can be played, unlike polychord where it is strum. Monochord instruments are instruments that can be played. So there are இதில் வந்து வீணை, all these things come under the monochord instruments. The first ever veena was called ektari. Ektari, which is one string instrument. You can see the picture. Then we had two string instrument, dotari. And then we had tritantrika. So the changes in the size, shape, structure and sound of the veenas were mainly in the number of strings, in the number of frets, in the type of wood that was used, and in the tuning. So this is how the metamorphosis of this instrument from being a single instrument with a single string evolved and came to where we are now. So there was also a change in the number of resonators that were used. If you notice, people were experimenting with the number of resonators. You see the Kinnari Veena with 3 kodams, all made of pumpkin gourd, sorekai. You see the Mahati Veena there with 2 sorekas there. Now, when we were talking about monochord instruments, the lutes naturally come under the monochord instruments. These are of 2 types. Lute-la vandu fretted and non-fretted. Fretted-la vandu இந்த மாதிரி வீணை, sitar, இதெல்லாம் வந்து it will be the fretted type. Non-frettedல வந்து you have vichitra veena, gotu vadhyam and everything. In the south, perhaps the only non-fretted lute that still exists is the gotu vadhyam. Now coming to the Saraswati Veena, in this entire galaxy of stringed instrument, the Saraswati Veena is considered as the queen of instrument because it has both melody and rhythm. 4 main strings to play the melody and 3 thalam strings for the thalam. I don't know any other instruments where you have a provision for rhythm as well as melody. Now we spoke about the number of strings. We said ektari, dotari. Then we spoke about the number of resonators. They had 2 resonators, experimented with 3. These resonators were made of pumpkin gourd and everything. The next experiment was with the number of frets. Initially, when frets were introduced, we had the Eka Raga Mela Veena, where you could play only one raga. It was, the frets were placed in such a way, you can play just one raga in that veena. And then they made a few adjustments, pushed it closer, and we had the Dviraga Mela Veena. And then evolved the Sarva Raga Mela Veena. That was what SRJ sir was talking to us about. The present size, structure, shape of the veena with 24 frets is attributed to the 17th century during the reign of King Raghunatha Nayak of Thanjavur. Now, the Nayaks ruled the Thanjavur district for a very long time. And what was very significant around that time was Raghunatha Nayak, his predecessor and his successor, had a very great minister whose name was Govinda Dikshitar. Interestingly, this Govinda Dikshitar is of Karnataka origin. He was a Kannadiga. And he and his wife did a lot for art, architecture, and renovation of so many temples in the Thanjavur district. Even today, if you go to the Pattishwaram temple, you will see a statue for Govinda Dikshitar and his wife in the entrance. That was how much he was hailed there, and he brought about a big revolution in what was done during the time of King Raghunath Nayak. The King Raghunath Nayak himself was a Vainika. Some books say that the King Raghunath Nayak himself came up with this idea of 24 frets. Some books refer to us and say that it was Govinda Dikshitar and his son Venkatamaki who contributed a great deal. So this cloud of ministers and courtmen influencing the king is not new only to Thanjavur. So around that period, it would be very safe to say that around the period when King Raghunath Nayak was ruling, the 24 frets were introduced. The veena that we have now with 3.5 octaves, 4 main strings, 3 strings on the side. We'll come more about it. So introduction of these frets catalyzed the raga classification, 7 notes with variations of 5 Vikriti notes. Sa and Pa, of course, and 2 Ris, 2 Gas, 2 Mas, 2 Das, 2 Nis. So every evolution in how the veena was structured or played led to major shifts in the science of Carnatic music itself. So exactly when the 24 frets were introduced, that is when Venkatamaki came about with the 72 Melakarta scheme. So when you could classify, a lot of these experiments and analyzing was done on the veena, where visually you can see all these notes and eppadi Melakarta was classified, eppadi 12 chakram vandadu, everything happened around the same time. Now we just go on to the description of the Saraswati Veena. I'm going to give you a minute to just... So main kodam, dandi, yali, birudai, mettu, nagapasham, langaram, meru, இதெல்லாம் எங்கே இருக்குன்னு நீங்கள் அதில், I don't have like a pointer to show you, so I'm just going to let you watch it. So in the 24 frets, என்ன significance? The veena is designed exactly like the human body. There are 24 vertebrae in our spinal cord. The Mooladhara chakra is right here, if you can see here. It starts in the lowest octave. And here, the Tarasthai. The 24 frets resembles the 24 vertebrae in our spinal cord. The 4 main strings resemble the 4, signify or symbolize the 4 Vedas. The 3 strings in the side, the Taalam strings, symbolize the Ichcha Shakti, desire, Jnana Shakti, knowledge, and Kriya Shakti. So Ambal is called Ichcha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti, Swarupini, appadina Lalita Sahasranamamla varum. So the 3 strings in the side signifies that. This is the Mooladhara chakra, and this is the head. You can see that beautiful picture of how the human body and the veena are symbolized. Earlier in the olden days, when they wanted to make a veena, maram venum. So எந்த மாதிரி மரம் எடுத்தா அப்படின்னா, பெரிய பெரிய கோவில் மணி கட்டி வச்சிருக்கும். 5 கால பூஜைக்கு இந்த மணி அடிப்பா. பெரிய பலா மரத்தில் இந்த மணி கட்டி வச்சுருக்கும்போது 5 காலம் அந்த பெரிய மணி அடிக்கும்போது அதோட ரெசனன்ஸ் இந்த மரத்தில் ஏறி 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 ஒரு 20 வருஷத்துக்கு அப்புறமா அந்த மரத்தை எடுத்து வீணையோ மிருதங்கமோ பண்ணுவாளாம். அதனால தான் ஓல்டு வீணைஸ்னாக்க வேல்யூ ஜாஸ்தி. இட்ஸ் நாட் லைக் யூ கோ டு அ ஷாப் அண்ட் பை சம்திங் ஆஃப் த ரேக் மாதிரி இல்லை. நியூ ட்ரெஸ் மாதிரி நியூ வீணை கிடையாது. ஓல்டு வீணையாக இருந்தானாக்க இட்ஸ் வெரி வெரி வேல்யூபிள், ஆன்டிக். இப்போ என்ன ஆச்சு, டிமாண்ட் ஃபார் வீணா இன்க்ரீஸ்ட் அ லாட் ஓவர் த இயர்ஸ் அண்ட் எல்லா பெரிய மரத்தையும் வெட்டி வீணை பண்ணியாச்சு. Then they started growing palamaram separately, ஃபார்ம்ஸ் வச்சு பலாமரத்தை வளர்த்து அதை எதுக்காக பலாமரம்னா அதில் அந்த பிசுப்பு தட் அதை ஈஸியாக நம்ம வந்து இந்த மெயின் குடம் இஸ் ஹாலோ இல்லையா, ஸோ அந்த ஷேப் கொண்டு வரத்துக்கு ரொம்ப ஈஸியாக இருக்கும். இட் கிவ்ஸ் இட் செல்ஃப் டு மேக் தட் ஷேப். ஸோ அந்த பலாமரத்தை வச்சு பண்ண ஆரம்பித்தா இன்னும் இன்க்ரீஸ் ஆகிடுத்து டிமாண்ட் ஃபார் வீணா. இப்போது கண்டெம்பரரியில் வந்து வீணை ஜாஸ்தி வேணும், டெக்கரேஷனோட வேணும் இப்படிலாம் கேட்டோன்னே இப்போ முருங்கை மரத்தில் கூட வீணை பண்ண ஆரம்பித்தாச்சு. பட் தி ரியலி குட் வீணாஸ் ஆர் மேட் ஃப்ரம் பலாமரம், வெரி வெரி ஓல்டு. அண்ட் இந்த வுட் வந்து இட்ஸ் ஜஸ்ட் எ வெரி வெரி லிவிங் திங், ஜஸ்ட் லைக் அஸ். இட் ஏஜஸ் வெரி கிரேஸ்ஃபுல்லி. எல்லோவாக வரும் முதல்ல, நாள் ஆக ஆக வந்து ஒரு பியூட்டிஃபுல் கோல்டன் ஹியூ, அப்புறம் ஒரு ப்ரௌன் ஆகும். அது அப்படியே இன்க்ரீஸ் ஆகும்போது அதோட போர்ஸ் எல்லாம் ஓப்பன் ஆகி அது ப்ரீத் பண்ணும். அண்ட் நம்ம வாசிக்க வீணை யாராவது ஆற்றுல இருந்தானாக்கா நீங்கள் வாசிக்காமல் வச்சுக்காதீங்க. பிகாஸ் ஒன்லி இஃப் யூ கீப் ஆன் பிளேயிங் இட், அதில் வந்து நாதம் நிறையா வெளியில் வந்துட்டே இருக்கும். சும்மா வச்சுக்கிறதுல ஷோகேஸில் வந்து இட்ஸ் நாட் ரியலி கோயிங் டு ஹெல்ப். நிறையா வாசிக்கணும். அதே மாதிரி ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ் ஆஃப் மியூசிக் வந்து எனக்கு வந்து நிறைய டெக்கரேஷனாக வீணை வேணும்னு கேட்குறது வந்து ரொம்ப சரியில்லை. பிகாஸ் டெக்கரேஷன் போட்டுட்டானா அது வெறும் வீடியோ வீணை, ஆடியோ வீணை கிடையாது. எவ்வளோக்கு எவ்வளோ கம்மியாக இருக்கோ அவ்வளோக்கு அவ்வளோ அந்த வீணை கேன் ப்ரீத். நல்லா பழைய காலத்தில் ஐவரி, இப்போ வந்து ஐவரி, ஸோ வந்து பிளாஸ்டிக்கெல்லாம் போட ஆரம்பிச்சுட்டா. அண்ட் யூ see a lot of this carving veena these days. Again, I will come to that. If I don't, one of the students remind me why it's important maybe not to have a carving veena. I hope the people from the stores don't get angry with me, but I have to tell you something about the sound and the relationship to it in the quality of wood that is required. Now, a short clip about how veena is made. This is the Thanjavur Veena that we are talking about. பாருங்க, மரத்தெல்லாம் கட் பண்ணி இப்படி போட்டு வச்சிருப்பார். அதில் சிங்கிள் பீஸ் வர்றது வந்து ரொம்ப கஷ்டம். ஸோ ஏகாண்ட வீணைன்னு இருக்குது. நிறைய பேர் ஏகாந்த அப்படின்னு சொல்கிறா. ஏகாந்த கிடையாது, ஏகாண்ட மீன்ஸ் அகண்ட, அன்எண்டிங், ஒன் பீஸ் வீணை. ஸோ தே வில் ஆல் ஸ்டார்ட் அவுட் ட்ரைங் டு மேக் த ஹோல் திங் வித் ஒன் பீஸ் ஆஃப் வுட். பட் உடஞ்சி போயிடுத்துனாக்கா தே வில் ஒட்டு வீணைன்னு பண்ணுவாள். ஏகாண்ட வீணை நம்மளுக்கு கிடச்சிதுன்னா வெரி குட். ஒட்டு வீணை இஸ் ஆல்சோ நாட் பேட் இஃப் இட் இஸ் டன் ரியலி நைஸ்லி. ஸோ இப்படி வந்து உள்ள திஸ் இஸ் பை பலாமரம் உள்ளே பாருங்க, அந்த மெயின் குடமை தே ஜஸ்ட் ஸ்கூப் இட் அவுட். மேல் பலகா அப்படின்னு சொல்கிறது வாட் ஹீஸ் ஃபிக்ஸிங் ரைட் நவ். இட்ஸ் ஆல் ஹாலோ. இந்த தண்டின்னு இருக்கு இல்லையா, இதுக்கு மேலே பலகா ஃபிக்ஸ் பண்ணுறாரு, அங்கேயும் ஹாலோ இருக்குது. நவ் ரெண்டு ரயில்வே ட்ராக் மாதிரி ரெண்டு, இந்த பக்கமும் அந்த பக்கமும் ஹீஸ் கோயிங் டு டூ. He's going to fix that. And remember, the kodam is empty. சில சமயம் அதில் பண்ணும்போது ஒரு சின்ன ஏதாவது கீழே ஒரு ஒட்டு போட்டிருக்காரு பாருங்க அவர். திஸ் இஸ் த ரியலி இம்பார்ட்டன்ட் பார்ட் ஆஃப் த வீணை. தட் இஸ் வாட் கிவ்ஸ் த சவுண்ட். இந்த மேல் பலகா ஓவர் த மெயின் ரெசனேட்டர். அது எவ்வளோக்கு எவ்வளோ தின்னாக இருக்கோ அவ்வளோக்கு அவ்வளோ வீணைக்கு சவுண்ட் ஜாஸ்தியாக இருக்கும். ஸோ கார்விங் வீணை பண்ணும்போது யூ கான்ட் கார்வ் ஆன் அ தின் பீஸ் ஆஃப் வுட். நிறைய கார்விங் பண்ணுறதுக்கு திக்காக போட்டால் சவுண்டு போயிடும். ஸோ ஹீஸ் பாலிஷிங் த மெயின் குடம் அண்ட் த தண்டி. நவ் ஹி ஹஸ் ஃபிக்ஸ் த பிரிடைஸ். அண்ட் அந்த சைடில் இருக்கிறது அதோட கொஞ்சம் மினிமம் டெக்கரேஷன் போட்டிருக்கார். அண்ட் ஹீ இஸ் கோயிங் டு ஸ்ட்ரிங் போட்டிருக்கார், பிரிட்ஜ் வச்சுருக்கார். கீப்பிங் த பிரிட்ஜ் இஸ் த மோஸ்ட் இம்பார்ட்டன்ட் திங். இப்போது மெழுக ஹீஸ் ஹனி பீஸ் வேக்ஸ், த ஃப்ரெட் போர்டு இருக்கு இல்லையா, அந்த மெழுகை வந்து நன்னா உருக்குவா. அதில் வந்து குங்குல்யம், சாம்பிராணி, ஸோ மெனி அதர் திங்ஸ். இட்ஸ் நாட் ஜஸ்ட் ஹனி பீஸ் வேக்ஸ், ஸோ மெனி திங்ஸ் ஆர் ஆடட். அண்ட் ஈச் வீணா மேக்கர் ஹேஸ் அ சீக்ரெட் ஃபார்முலா வாட் ஹீ ஆட்ஸ். ஹீல் நெவர் ரிவீல் தட் டு தி அதர் பர்சன். ஸோ அதை வந்து பண்ணி காய்ச்சி, மெழுகை காய்ச்சி அது மேலே ஊற்றிட்டு ஹீ வில் ஸ்கூப் இட் அவுட். நல்ல வெங்கலம் மெட். இது கார்விங் வீணை பாருங்க, கார்விங் பண்ணியிருக்கா. வெங்கலத்தில் மெட்டு போடுவா. அண்ட் இஃப் யூ நோட்டிஸ் த டிஸ்டன்ஸ் இன் த ஃப்ரெட்ஸ், கீழே அந்த மூலாதாரத்தில் இருக்கும்போது ஃப்ரெட்ஸ் வில் பி ஃபார் அவே ஃப்ரம் ஈச் அதர். Principle of sound, as we go higher, the frets will come close by. I think you can see that in this. And we don't have sorekai secondary resonator anymore. We went to paper mache and now finally to fiberglass. And that's how, I mean, he's just, melam pannumbodhu he's just fixing the whole thing. We now come to the tuning and playing techniques. Tuning depends on whichever pitch the particular artist wants to do. Earlier, when people used to sing along with the veena, they used to have anjakatta, anjarakatta ella veena vaasichinda. And over the period of time, veena became a solo instrument, and most people play in E or F or D sharp these days. So one tonic note, one main note, let us say for today we have E. So the main string, the perfect fifth, pa, ரெண்டாவது தந்தி pa, third lower octave of the main string, and the fourth lower octave of the second string. So, sa pa. And thalam strings, sa, pa, sa. Sometimes, if we play a panchama varjya ragam that does not have pa, we tune it to ma. And sometimes during thanam, like when we play hamsanandi or something, we do ga, dha, ni or something like that. You can change the tuning of the thalam strings, but the standard tuning is sa pa sa, and the main strings is sa pa in 2 octaves. Now playing techniques அப்படிங்கும்போது, the left hand, the tip of these 2 main fingers, of course we use this and this at a later stage, but initially we have tracks or calluses. You have to form you press the tip of this and you play like that. And the right hand, in some schools they use their nails to pluck the strings. In some schools, they use what is known as a meet. These meters are of different types. The one I use is covering the finger like this. Some people in the olden times, they used to have a meter with just one string. பழைய காலத்து வித்வான்லாம் கேட்டேன்னா you will have ஒரு long string மட்டும் வரும். அந்த மாதிரி மீட்டெல்லாம் இருக்கும். Some people also wear a covering for the little finger to play thanam and to highlight the thalam strings more. ஒரு metal sound கொடுக்கிறதுக்கு they do that. So playing techniques na, veena is mainly a gamaka vadyam because you have these scalloped frets. அதாவது we can pull strings, you know, basically. And by pulling strings, you can reach out to any note and give the most essential aspect that makes Indian music, that is the gamakam or the ornamentation or the embellishment. Now, so you can actually give, this is called, Dikshidhar has called it Dashavida Gamaka Kriye. So all the gamakas that we read about, we talk about, can be visually seen here. Now, playing techniques, அப்படின்னு ஒரு ஸ்லைடை போட்டுட்டு learn Veena in 30 days madri, I can't tell you. So playing techniques by itself is a huge I didn't know what to put for that slide because playing techniques is a huge thing. I'm just addressing people who are not familiar with Veena here. இந்த கையை எப்படி பண்ணுங்கோ, இந்த ரைட் ஹேண்டை மீட்டுங்கோ, இந்த லிட்டில் ஃபிங்கரை தாளம் போடுங்கோ, ஸ்ருதியை சேர்த்துக்கோங்கோ, ஸ்டார்ட் பிளேயிங். தட் மச் யூ கேன் டெல். பட் இன் லெக் டெம், ஐ டோன்ட் நோ ஹவு யூ கேன் எக்ஸ்பிளைன் playing techniques. Maybe I can tell you more about techniques as we talk about banis. Now, what is bani? Bani is a style. நீங்கள் எந்த பாணியில் வாசிக்கிறீர்கள் அப்படின்னு people used to ask. It's a tradition. Anything that is done over a period of time and accepted by others and followed by a few others becomes a tradition. It is something that is handed over through generations from one guru to the other. Veenaயை பொறுத்த வரைக்கும் somehow these banis are demarked state-wise. You'll very soon know why. It is not like இப்போ ஹிந்துஸ்தானியில் கரானாஸ்னு இருக்கிற மாதிரி இங்கே வந்து ஸ்டேட் அக்கார்டிங் டு த டிஃப்ரெண்ட் ஸ்டேட்ஸ் பானிஸ் வந்திருக்கு. மைசூர் பாணி, அந்த ஒடையார்ஸ் வேர் ரூலிங். தஞ்சாவூர் பாணி, த நாயக்ஸ் வேர் ரூலிங். ஆந்திரா பாணி, விஜயநகர் எம்பையர். கேரளா, த திருநாள்ஸ். இந்த பிளேயிங் ஸ்டைல் அண்ட் த டைப் ஆஃப் வீணாக்கு தெர் இஸ் அ பிக் கனெக்ஷன். If you see the structure, can we just go to the previous slide? You see the black veena, that is a Mysore veena. The other yellow veena is a Thanjavur veena. Mysore, Karnatakala, rosewood nariya kadikum. So they used a lot of rosewood to make their veenas. Number Kerala, Tamil Nadu, palamaram nariya kadikum. So we used a lot of palamaram. Now, there is another thing. When we go to the next slide, you will see that the fretboard and the male palaga, the top board on the left side is the Mysore veena. The one with the hole in the center here is the Thanjavur veena. Thanjavur veena, the fret வந்து இந்த what do you call this carving in the scalloped thing கொஞ்சம் ஜாஸ்தியாக இருக்கும். பிகாஸ் நிறைய கமக்கம் இழுத்து வாசிக்கிற ஸ்டைல் நிறையா. மைசூர் வீணையில் ரொம்ப டீப்பாக இருக்காது. இட் வில் பி அ லிட்டில் நாட் மச் அண்ட் தே ஆர் யூஷுவலி டியூன்ட் டு அ ஹையர் பிச். தெர் இஸ் அ லிட்டில் திங் தட் ஐ வுட் லைக் டு ஷேர் ஹியர். மைசூர் வீணையில் த டோன் வில் பி அமேசிங். ரொம்ப ஸ்வீட்டாக டோன் ரொம்ப நல்லா இருக்கும். வாய் அப்படின்னா தே புட் அ வெரி வெரி தின் மேல் பலகா. தே கேன் புட் அ தின் மேல் பலகா பிகாஸ் தே ஆர் பிளேயிங் வென் தே பிளே ஆன் த ஃப்ரெட் தே டோன்ட் புல் த ஸ்ட்ரிங்ஸ் அ லாட். ரொம்ப கமக்கம் கொடுக்க மாட்டா. ஸோ த ப்ரெஷர் ஆன் த பிரிட்ஜ் இஸ் லெஸ். ஸோ த பிரிட்ஜ் won't break in and go into the மேல் பலகா. தின் மேல் பலகா போட்டால் கூட you won't have the risk of the bridge cracking up and going inside because you are not going to put a lot of pressure on the bridge by pulling and doing all those things. So they get a very clear and nice tone. Thanjavur is the Gamaka style. When you pull, you need a strong top board, strong male palaga. So the top board of the Thanjavur veena is slightly than that of the Mysore veena. So according to the style, the instrument is also constructed. You can see that. Again, in the next slide, we have the yali. You see the yali, which is so different in the Mysore yali and the Thanjavur yali. Even also in Thanjavur also, we had Narayana Asarinu ஒரு wonderful maker. அவரோட வீணை கிடச்சா you must never leave it because he was an amazing veena maker. And of course we had Ramji. Ramji's வீணைஸ் were also amazing. அதுக்கப்புறமா அந்த மாதிரி குவாலிட்டியில் வீணை I'm not sure if we got, but these were some really great veena makers. So even they had their own signature. For instance, Narayana Asari, when he used to make this center hole in the வீணை, அதில் ஒரு சின்ன ஒரு மெட்டல் லைனிங் கொடுப்பார், சும்மா அவரோட ஒரு சிக்னேச்சர் மாதிரி. ராம்ஜி வீணையில் அரவுண்ட் திஸ் சென்டர் திங் ஹி வுட் புட் அ தாமரப்பூ அரவுண்ட் இட். யூ வுட் நோ எட்டிலேருந்து, ஓ இது ராம்ஜி வீணையா. யூ see the லக்ஷணம் ஆஃப் த வீணை, யூ வில் நோ இட் இஸ் ராம்ஜிஸ் வீணை. The next slide is the Andhra Veena, which is also called Bobbili Veena இருக்குது. நுஜ்வீடி வீணைன்னு ஒன்று இருக்குது, நுஜ்வீடின்னு சொல்லணும். ஸோ அதில் வந்து டெக்கரேஷன் ரொம்ப நல்லாயிருக்கும். அகெயின் ரொம்ப லைட் வெயிட் வீணை. ஆந்திரா ஸ்டைல் ஆல்சோ ரொம்ப புல்லிங் ஸ்ட்ரிங்ஸ் கிடையாது, இங்கே தான் எல்லாம் ஸ்ட்ரிங் புல்லிங்கெல்லாம். ஆந்திராவில் வந்து ரொம்ப ஸ்வீட் டோன் and you can see the design. இங்கே வந்து ஒரு தாமரைப்பூ மாதிரி வந்திருக்கு this partல. And they have some very artistic design. They even have sometimes யாழிக்கு பதிலாக peacock கூட இருக்கும் சில வீணையில். So that is the Andhra Veena. Before I explain little more about the structure, let us start listening to different clips of in the different banis so that we can analyze. இப்போ before you listen, I'll tell you, மைசூர் பாணியை வந்து கிரியேட் பண்ணினது ஸ்ரீ த கிரேட் சேஷண்ணா and Subbanna, who were court musicians in the royal ஆஸ்தான வித்வான்ஸாக இருந்தாவா. ஸோ அவளோட கிளிப்பிங் இருக்குது, பட் த ஆடியோ 1920 recording of Veena Sheshanna, but the audio is not good. So we are moving to the next descendant, which is Mysore Doraswamy Iyengar. Notice, we don't have a video clip, but notice you will, in the split fingering technique, அப்புறம் நகத்தில் மீட்டுவார், உங்களுக்கு அந்த சவுண்டில் தெரியும். அந்த கமகம் டிஃப்ரென்ஸ் இதையும் கேளுங்கோ. We'll just play this clipping for you. தஞ்சாவூரில் அப்படி கொடுப்போம். ஸோ நம்ம வந்து விரலடி அப்புறம் கமத பமாப கரீசா நம்ம வந்து காலியே அதை எழுத்து கொடுப்போம். So just notice these things. Continue. மீட்டும்போது அந்த நெயிலோட சவுண்டு கவனிங்க. And the sweetness of the tone. Can we have another clip? Very you able to see the split fingering techniques, how you go to the actual note and the meat, lot of meat. So இந்த சாகித்யம் மீட் அப்படிங்கிறது வந்து it was not given so much importance. இங்கே வந்து சாகித்யம் வர இடத்துல தான் மீட்டு அண்ட் ஆல் ஆஃப் தேட் இருக்குது. ஸோ இது வந்து ஒரு வெரி பியூட்டிஃபுல், it's a very beautiful tone that you can hear and very instrumental style of playing. So Mysore Banila, the famous thing was Chitta Tanam அப்படினு they had something. This was propagated by Veena Sheshanavar. Chitta Tanamங்கிறது ஒரு ராகமாலிகையா ஒன் ஆஃப்டர் தி அதர் ரொம்ப பியூட்டிஃபுல்லாக ஒரு சிட்ட தானம்ங்கிறது they used to play in the front of Maharaja. That became very famous, so much so it was notated and taught to students. And they used to play the Chitta Tanam as a group. And அந்த கனராக பஞ்சகம் இதில் வந்து சேர்ந்து அந்த தானத்தை வாசிப்பாவா. சிட்ட தானம், சிட்ட பண்ணுறதுங்கிற மாதிரி சிட்ட தானம். We now go to Andhra Bani, where again see the sweetness of the tone because of the lightweight veena. Again notice the number of meter, notice the instrumental style, and notice the virtuosity that they have. We are now listening to Andhra Bani naka first number Sangameshwara Shastrigal. Sangameshwara Shastri na veena playing posture. Some people used to play it keeping like this, but there is also the Urdhva style, nikka vechindu veena vasipa. So Sangameshwara Shastri used to play the veena keeping it like this. And he did what is known as Veyi Sadhakam, which is moon rise lende moon set verikum he used to play with the veena like that continuously. So he is a great propagator of Andhra Bani. Since we don't have his recording, next we will listen to Sri Emani Shankara Shastri Garu. Notice that da 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 da. So they put a meat, whereas in Thanjavur nam da andga vandu da meat varum. But this is, it's a very very instrumental style, bringing out the beauty of veena as an instrument. So you can see how different each style has been. His disciple Chitti Babu Garu, he was the person like Radhaji had asked us what people have done differently. So what Chitti Babu ji had done, to make veena and music very attractive for everybody, he came up with a lot of instrumental melodies. So we are playing something on a lighter vein that he has played for you. இருக்கிற அந்த ஸ்ட்ரிங்ஸை எவ்வளோ கலர்ஃபுல்லாக. ஸோ இஃப் எவ்ரிபடி பிளேட் த வீணா in the same way, it would have probably been boring. We had so many types, so many. For a rasika, it must have been so much fun. இந்த ஒரு ரொம்ப கமகமாக ஒன்று கேட்குறது, ஒன்று ரொம்ப இன்ஸ்ட்ருமெண்டலாக கேட்குறது. It would have been so much fun to listen to each of these artists who were so, I mean, Saraswati Devi blessed each of them differently. So Chitti Baba Garu was, அவரோட ஸ்வீட்னஸ் ஆஃப் டோன், ஹிஸ் ஸ்மைலிங் ஃபேஸ், அண்ட் ஹி கேம் அப் வித் ஸோ மெனி. இன்ஃபேக்ட் நிறைய கான்சர்ட்டில் ஈவன் வென் ஐ கோ, சடனாக என்னை வந்து கேன் யூ ப்ளே கம் செப்டம்பர் அப்படின்னு கேட்பா. அப்படின்னா இட்ஸ் ஸோ இம்பார்ட்டண்ட். you're aware what all these people have done instrumentally, and to present this instrument in such a beautiful way to the people. We now go on to the Kerala Bani. Let us listen to Vidwan Sri K.S. Narayan Swami. Now we listen to Vidwan. It's not at all justice listening 1 minute, 1.5 minutes to these great legends, but we have to cover a lot, and it's not like whoever is chosen are the true representatives, Madrila. We've just made a random collection of what we, depending on the data available. So our pranams to all the great Vidwans who have represented each style. This is just like the tip of the iceberg for you, like a sample. Vidwan Sri Trivandrum R. Venkatram. See, paadra madri is coming a bit. Trivandrum style, we go to the Thanjavur Bani. Thanjavur Bani அப்படின்னு சொல்லும்போது the first representative we can take is, of course, Veena Dhanammal. We managed to get a recording of hers, and you will notice that the pitch is higher because she used to sing along with when she was playing. We have a clipping for you. More meat is because they didn't use pickup like we all do. Mic vechinda vaspa, most probably this recording was recorded acoustic. So in order to be heard, meat konja jastiya irukum. Of Thanjavur style, Kalpakam Swaminathanamma. When I was listening to these clippings during my research, இந்த ததரீன அப்படிங்கிறது வந்து did it come to Carnatic music from the Veena அப்படின்னு. You see, because you can't sustain, சின்ன சின்ன ஃப்ரேஸுக்கு நிறைய மீட்டு போட்டுருந்தோம். ட ட ட ட ட ட ட ட அப்படி மீட்டு போடுவோம். ஸோ அதே நம்ம are we trying when we sing? அதே ஹிந்துஸ்தானியில் all the instruments have a long sustain. எந்த இன்ஸ்ட்ருமெண்ட் எடுத்தாலும். Is that why their vocal is also not tadarina, is அப்படி வருது வந்து, is it because their instruments also have long sustain? It's a small thought because this is a conference of instruments. I just thought we should float that idea and maybe discuss about it sometime. Of Thanjavur Bani, my revered Guru, Padmavati Ananthagopalanamma. One important thing is, in the typically Thanjavur bani, while playing kriti, let us take a kriti like Ide Shankarabharanathla Bhakti Bhikshamiyave. So they will put meet exactly where the syllable comes, like so. Unlike அப்படி வராது. ஸோ ஸோ எங்கே சாகித்யம் வருதோ அங்கே மீட்டு வர மாதிரி இதே ரொம்ப அது ஃபாலோ பண்ணுவா. அப்புறம் தாளம் ஸ்ட்ரிங்ஸ் வந்து கம்மியாக யூஸ் பண்ணுவா. You will not find the to fill the gaps தாளம் string மீட்டறது பக்கத்தந்தியை மீட்டுறது இருக்காது. ஜஸ்ட் ஆல்மோஸ்ட் லைக் த வீணா ஹேஸ் அ வாய்ஸ் அந்த மாதிரி ப்ரெசன்டேஷன் இருக்கும். இந்த தஞ்சாவூர்லேயே ரொம்ப பியூட்டிஃபுல் ஸ்டைல் இன்னொரு ஸ்டைல் என்னென்னா காரைக்குடி ஸ்டைல். காரைக்குடி சாம்பசிவையர் அவர் கண்டுபிடிச்ச ஸ்டைல். தட் இஸ் அ பியூட்டிஃபுல் அமால்கமேஷன் ஆஃப் திஸ் கன்சர்வேட்டிசம் ஆஃப் திஸ் தஞ்சாவூர் பாணி அண்ட் அ லிட்டில் பிட் ஆஃப் இன்ஸ்ட்ருமெண்டல். இதில் வந்து கொஞ்சம் ஸ்பீடு கம்மியாக இருக்கும் தஞ்சாவூர் பாணியில். பட் காரைக்குடியில் வந்து கொஞ்சம் பெப்பியாக ஸ்பீடு இன்க்ரீஸ்டாக இருக்கும். தாளம்க்கு நிறையா இம்பார்ட்டன்ஸ், நிறையா ஒரு காலப்பிரமாணமாக இருக்கட்டும், ஸ்வரம் வாசிக்கிறதா இருக்கட்டும். அதில் ஆனால் தாளத்தந்தியை நிறையா இன் பிட்வீன் டு ஃபில் த கேப்ஸ் யூஸ் பண்ணுவா. அண்ட் ஆல்சோ யூ வில் நோட்டிஸ் தட் அப்படின்னு அந்த பேஸ் தந்தியை மீட்டி ஒரு ரொப்பிடுவா தி என்டையர் திங். ஸோ வி ஹாவ் அ ரெப்ரசன்டேஷன் ஆஃப் தட். I think we have a clipping of Vidushi Rajeshwari Padmanabhanji. So let's listen to that in the Karaikudi Bani. noticed that the bass tandi and ariya meter there to fill the gaps. Usage of thalam strings is more rhythmic playing. Speed is also increased. Shruti is slightly higher than the Thanjavur bani. This is one part of Karaikudi bani. So in the end bani dume serama individual bani abdinaka Dr. S. Balachandra sir. He came up with his own way of playing the instrument. Let us start with hearing one audio clip. Show you different dimensions of his playing. Just to give you an idea, every bani can be put under 3 categories. Either it is Gayaki or Tantrakari or a combination of both. Most of the banis you heard were either instrumental completely or Gayaki, or a combination with the elements of both instrumental and Gayaki. So when you talk about Gayaki, a very great Vidwan once told me, Gayaki is not playing like somebody sings. Gayaki is playing like as if your instrument has a voice and how will it sing. It's not imitating a voice. If you imitate a voice, you might as well listen to the actual voice. So it is finding the voice of your instrument, voice of the veena, voice of the violin, and if it sang, how will it sing? So now what has happened with the advent of technology and the regions merging, Karnataka, Kerala, Mysore, Thanjavur, they are not far off places anymore. They are like few hours away. this demarcation of so-called banis. Earlier, as a kid, everybody used to ask me, "Ni enna bani la vasikirama?" Now, I think the bridges have all melted, and the next generation of musicians are imbibing the nice, cool things from every bani. So if there is something nice, this pulling technique is nice. Oh, that usage of Paalam string is nice. Oh, this split fingering is nice. Oh, this usage of this mandaram string to fill in the gap is nice. So everybody is opening up their minds and coming out of the Gharana box and saying, I like this. I can enrich my playing with this. So you cannot find such a very different bani anymore, because of course you will find individual interpretation, individual styles, but like Mysore and Andhra, and you could see each one was so very different. So nowadays you will find most of these elements in each of these things. Yes, it's gone beyond time and space, and as I was telling you, there is an amalgamation of styles now, and I think styles have merged and more individual styles are coming up now. The next subject we are going to discuss is the scope of the instrument. Balachandra sir used to tell me, I've spoken about this to Radhaji before, there is no limitation to any instrument. If there is a limitation, it is with the player, not with the instrument. So anything can be played on an instrument, and each instrument has an intrinsic quality, a texture that it contributes to enriching the entire spectrum of music. We have an interesting video for you. Bhaskar ji, Balachandra Mama is playing for Mudhra. Talking about scope, as a kid, I was blessed because of my Perima, Srimati Padmavati Amma, to play along with Balachandar sir. So as a kid, I was always used to Varnam, appuram or Pilliyar Kriti, and you know the format. As a child, you would play a concert like that. So this concert was in the Carnatic Music College. Appo all the great Vidwans were teaching there. It was a morning concert, one music season like this. Our SB Mama வந்து பார்த்தாலே you will be scared. அங்கே எது சா தந்தி எது பா தந்தி அப்படின்னே மறந்து போயிடும். ஒரு மாதிரி ஒரு ஒத்தரெல்லாம் இருக்கும் அவர் உட்காந்துண்டா. So I was sitting next to him and he tuned for a long time, and then little girl that I was, he said, என்ன வாசிக்கலாம்? நான் வந்து மாமா நவராக மாலிகா வர்ணம் வாசிக்கலாமா அப்படின்னு. He was expecting like I would say ஒரு மந்தாரி ராகம் வாசிக்கலாம் or something. Like a kid I said, நவராக மாலிகா வர்ணம் வாசிக்கலாமா? He said, சரி அப்படின்னு. அந்த ஹோல் கச்சேரியில் ஃபஸ்ட்டு இந்த 9 ராகம்ஸ் வாசித்தார். அப்புறம் இந்த 9 ராகம்ஸ்க்கு தானம் வாசித்தார். அப்புறம் இந்த வர்ணம் வாசித்து அதுக்கு 2ஆம் காலம் வாசித்து சரணம் பதச ரோஜாவில் 9 ராகத்துலேயும் ஸ்வரம் வாசித்து கச்சேரி ஃபினிஷ்ட் வித் ஸ்ரீராகா. ஸோ தி என்டையர் கான்சர்ட் had one piece which was Navaraga Malika Varnam. And what is the scope of music? What is the scope of what you can play? The sky is the limit. You can finish a Navaraga Malika Varnam in 4 minutes, or you can play a whole concert. I remember appadan the YACM and other things were coming up, and the next day when I went, everyone asked me, SB Mama oda vaasi neethikku ennalam vaasichel? I said Navaraga Malika Varnam. Appuram avladha. The whole concert was just this. எவ்வளோ நேரம் அந்த ஒவ்வொரு ராகமும் அண்ட் ஒன்னொன்னும் அந்த பதசரோஜாக்கு திரும்பி வந்து கேதாரம்லேருந்து ஆரம்பித்து அப்புறம் ஸ்ரீயில் அப்படியே வாசித்து he finished the entire concert. Everybody was jaw dropped and everybody was watching him. ஸோ ஸ்கோப் இந்த வாத்தியத்தில் வந்து கரெக்ஷன் அப்படின்னு பண்ணினா இந்த டியூனிங் பெக்ஸ் இதெல்லாம் வந்து ஆக்சுவலி வெறும் டெக்கரேஷனுக்கு தான். இப்போது மாடர்ன்ஸ் இதில் imagine I come in a air conditioned car and I sit here and hot lights come on. Immediately woodla shruti erangidum. If I am sitting here most of the time I will only be tuning. If I am able to play, it's because now the changes that they have done, SB Mama introduced this tuning keys, guitar tuning keys irukku, that is introduced here. So we all, my Perima, all of us, most Veena players now have started using guitar tuning keys for precision and tighter. So இப்போ இங்கேருந்து எக்ஸ்ட்ரீம் ஸ்டேடியமில் போய் எத்தனையோ வாட்ஸ் லைட் போட்டாலும் டியூனிங் அஃபெக்ட் ஆகாது. அதே மாதிரி he did a lot of other changes which most only he did. In the hollow dandiயில் he put a aluminium sheet inside because அந்த மாதிரி from lower ga he used to pull till upper ga. And you know, if you pull that much, what will happen to this pavam, this thin dandi? So when I used to learn, I used to try and from lower ga go up to sa and then look up how is he going up to ga. And then he said, ஆண்டவனே வேண்டாம்மா, நீ சாப்பிட்ற தயிர் சாத்துக்கு சா இழுத்தாலே ஜாஸ்தி. So he did a lot of enforcement with the Veena, and he used stainless steel frets, like we all use brass frets for smooth இது. அப்புறம் இந்த செகண்டரி ரெசோனேட்டருக்கு இந்த ஏரோப்ளைன் மெட்டீரியல், இந்த ஹிண்டாலியமோ ஏதோ சொல்வா, இன்னும் கோல்ட் கலர், he used that. And கச்சேரியில் வந்து ஸ்ட்ரிங் போயிடுத்துனா he doesn't have to take and அதை எடுத்து சுற்றி முதலேருந்து டியூன் எல்லாம் பண்ண வேண்டாம். அது ஏதோ பிசி சர்க்கார் மேஜிக் ஷோ மாதிரி இருக்கும். இதில் ஹூக்ஸ் ரெடியாக இருக்கும், 2வது ஸ்ட்ரிங் அப்படியே இருக்கும். அதை போட்ட உடனே அப்படியே ஒரு நைலான் கவர் எடுப்பார், அப்படியே ஒரு செகண்டில் போட்டுட்டு இழுத்து விடுவார். இம்மீடியட்டாக இட் வில் ஆல் செட். ஸோ யூ வில் வண்டர், ஐ மீன், ஹவு டிட் இட் ஹேப்பன்? ஸோ so many changes to the very structure. பார்க்கறதுக்கு தான் அது வீணையாக இருந்ததே தவிர so many other changes. இன்ஃபேக்ட் இங்கே வந்து கோல்டு லக்ஷ்மி, கோல்டு சரஸ்வதி, அந்த வீணையை தூக்கிறதுக்கே it would be, it's very difficult. I don't know, maybe because I was a kid at that time. It used to be a huge thing. இந்த ராமர் வந்து அந்த வில்ல தூக்கின மாதிரி இருக்கும், அவ்வளோ யூனோ ஹியூஜ் அண்ட் அவ்வளோ ஹெவியாக இருக்கும் அந்த வாத்தியம். அண்ட் he used fiber glass bridge. We all use கருங்காலி மரம், பிரிட் எல்லாம் கருங்காலி மரம். He used fiber glass and மேலே வந்து டாப் போர்டு was stainless steel, பிகாஸ் அந்த தந்தி இழுக்கும்போது ஸ்க்ரீச் ஆகக்கூடாது அப்படிங்கிறதுக்காக, ஸ்மூத்னஸ்க்காக he used a lot of things. So scope of the instrument, many people have done. This I could tell little more because I've seen it. I can only see what I have, what I have seen at close quarters. I could share this with you. And sadhana அப்படிங்கும்போது another thing is, வீணை பொறுத்த வரைக்கும் இது வந்து தெய்வ வாத்தியம், பட் அசுர சாதகம் பண்ணணும். ஒரு நாள் வாசிக்கலைன்னா கூட these tracks will merge and then it will say, well, I don't know you அப்படின்னு சொல்லிடும் the instrument. So you have to, for a beginner, instead of learning exercises that vocalists do, like for instance, let's say somebody is starting to learn veena, if they do that, you're only handling one string. So I would suggest play exercises. So 3 octaves cover பண்ற மாதிரி you can do different ragams. And இதில் வந்து repertoire is one. You learn the content from a guru. You learn technique for gamakam, technique for virtuosity, technique for speed, technique for expression, technique for clarity. அப்புறமா other thing is your own idea improving. And இப்போ இந்த கமகம்க்கு there are many exercises that many students of Veena I see here who can do. So you can do pulling exercise like that. And take a note. You can so you can play a whole thing here. So let's take another ragam. So then you go to and how much gamakam should you give when you play speed? How much gamakam should you give when you do kirkalam? How you ornament it, how you ornament the space when you play kirkalam, and how just like when you run, you lift your entire feet, only the tip of your toes you keep, right? So அவ்வளோதான் கொடுக்கலாமே. this finger. So how much gamakam you give when you play male kalam and things like that. So sadhana is again like playing techniques, another huge world which I'm sure each of your gurus will talk to you about. Learning content, learning repertoire is only one part. Learning the instrument, playing the instrument like an instrument. If you are just going to play what a vocalist sings, why would anybody come and listen to you? They will actually listen to the vocalist. What are you going to do specifically, specially on your instrument that only you can do on your instrument that people will come to you to listen? There has to be an intrinsic, like Sri Ramji was saying, each instrument has a special thing to contribute. Unless you highlight that quality of your instrument, nobody's going to want to listen to you. So go in search of the spirit of that instrument, the soul of that instrument. Identify yourself with it and bring that out. Make the instrument accept you and then bring that out. That is the most important part of sadhana. Adaptation and collaboration in other genres. We see, when we heard Chitti Babu sir playing, we saw how he had experimented and Veena has been used in films, Veena has been used in jazz and rock concerts, several, and we have several of our wonderful contemporary players who have tried to play Beethoven on the Veena. We have great Veena players who play fusion, who play film music, who play lots of things. So if you just think, oh, Veena is supposed to be kept only inside the Srirangam temple and played for the Lord, then we are really not, this is the national instrument of India. It has to play every type of music that an Indian hears, feels, sees and empathizes with. So ella type of music you can play on the Veena. It's your choice of what you want to play. But you can adapt it to any genre you want. And several of my contemporary musicians are very ably doing that and adapting it to several genres and doing it in a very successful way. I think we talked about this earlier. Innovation on the instrument, I told you about the guitar keys, use of a pickup, which came in. Emini Shankara Shastri Garu, I think, was the first person to introduce a pickup on the Veena. Apollan true voice in our pickup they used to use, and how it increased the sustain of the instrument, how it gave us more continuity, more audibility. And now, from our Veena, where we had the human skull as the main resonator, now we have electronic Veena, and Radel has come up with a digital Veena even. You know what a digital Veena can do? It has a MIDI mixer. So if you play on the Veena, and it has 3 switches. It says sitar, flute and violin or some 3 instruments. You play on the Veena and you put it in the flute thing, it will be heard as a flute. It has a MIDI mixer on it. So the digital Veena, it's gone digital. And you can dismantle the electronic Veena, put both the gourds in a bag and carry it as a backpack when you go. And so many types of Veenas, dismantleable Veena, detachable Veena, electric Veena, electronic Veena, Madhura Veena, Sunada Vinodini Veena has all come, and many people are trying so many ways of popularizing this instrument and making it easy for people to carry it, learn it. In fact, the Sunada Vinodini Veena, what they have done is, in one resonator, it has inbuilt Shruti box. You just have to turn it on. And in one, it has a speaker, ampli speaker. So if I turn it on this side, you will hear me. I'm plugged in. On this side, if I turn it on, it is the tambura. I don't have to carry a tambura separately. After playing it, I just detach the main piece, put these 2 resonators in a bag and the other one in a nice cool black case and take it. So many innovations have happened to this instrument. Choice is ours as to what we would like to do. I think we are coming to the end of this presentation. In innovation in presentation, of course, we heard instrumental compositions by Chitti Babu Garu. And then Chittatanam. Even during Sheshana's time, we were talking about the Chittatanam. Remember that how they used to teach, they used to buy heart and play it together. I remember SB Mama used to play 45 Ragam concert. Even in the music academy, I think it was the year when MS Amma was getting the Kalanidhi, he played this concert, only 45 ragas, no accompaniment, no mridangam, no ghatam, nothing. One after the other, seamlessly, just 45. So the time when he used to shift from one raga to the other, everybody it would be a very thrilling moment, the way he shifted from one to the other. So that was a great innovation. I had the great fortune of trying this concept, and I played a couple of 45 raga concert. And several other innovations have happened in terms of genres, in terms of playing beyond the frets here, playing after the frets, even in playing in the frets, so many innovations of playing Hindustani music. We have Sadhana Sajni in Bombay who plays Hindustani music on the Veena. I had a small experiment that I did. It was called Mysterious Duality, where with single artist, single instrument, I over dubbed 7 tracks. The Shruti would come from the Veena, the percussion would come from the Veena. This is a reflection of our multiple personalities. I got this idea as I was sitting one day and found myself responding differently to each person, like your mother, your guru, a concert organizer, your student, how your voice, how your intonation changes. So somehow musically I wanted to represent it. So I'll play a short clipping of that for you. It's just one Veena on top of another, 7 Veenas together. And the album was called Just Me, Mysterious Duality. Just listen to it. And I think the next slide is listening approach of the audience. And I think this is the time when Radhaji, you must open the questions to others and what they would like to ask.
Before we move on to the audience session, first of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Jayanthi Kumaresh for that wonderful session, enlightening us on so many aspects of the great instrument. நிறைய விஷயங்கள் இன்றைக்கி தெரிஞ்சிக்க முடிஞ்சுது. அது அந்த என்லைட்மெண்ட்டுங்கிறது இன்றைக்கி ஃபுல்லாக முழுமையாக ஆரம்பிச்சுடுத்து. I think it will go on a long journey. Before we move on to the audience session, may I request our chairperson, Dr. Sriram Parshuram, to share his observations on this session, and then we'll move on to the audience.
We have got to such a flying start. Thank you so much, Jayanti ji. She's a very complete musician. Yeah, she understands, she's blessed with a very, very full, wholesome understanding of the tradition, of the instrument, of sound, of a sense of objectivity behind the music, of how to present everything. So that's a very rare quality. It's also very nice and heartening to see, especially when I think the most significant section of today's presentation has been that part of it which dealt with bani or bani, how she went in a certain amount of depth into each of them. What was very heartening to know is that she was enjoying all the bani examples with equal fervor. So that objectivity is also very wonderful to see, is that you can appreciate and assimilate all that is beautiful in the different banis without being obstinate and narrow-minded about to which bani you belong. I've come across people who say, "Na Samagudi Mama Mattundang keppe." So you're lost. I will tell them, you lose out on listening to so many other banis. So that's a very eye-opener in terms of for all of us to not be, narrow-minded in terms of our approach as a student. So there is good to be offered and assimilated and learned from all the banis. It's also very nice to see how one can exist in both worlds, in the traditional world as well as in the contemporary world, in a very convincing way that many are not able to do. Most fail. Either it's a fancy for the modern contemporary which is pleasing, or it is the very traditional which is stuck upon not being able to adjust to what the times require. Like she says, tradition is constantly evolving. To be able to evolve along with the times is part of a quality that a musician has to, without losing much, without losing the core, how you are able to adapt to changing times. So we can see in Jayanthi a very wonderful, wholesome musician in terms of that also. So we have got off to a very flying start. Thank you so much. Like always, with very good musicians who have spent 30, 40 years, am I right? At least 30, 40 years, with a chosen instrument. You don't choose the instrument chooses you. So with an instrument that she's chosen for, 2 hours also is not enough. ஒரு ராகத்தையும் வச்சு கொஞ்சம் கூட கேட்கணுமான்னு ரொம்ப ஆசை இருந்தது. I wanted to listen to many more ragas that she plays and so many other things. But I guess I will cut short and thank you very much is all I can say. We wish that we have many more sessions with her in the future also, where I also see that many people come and tell me, naala lay person, enakella ஞானம் இல்லை, எனக்கு லெக்டம் எல்லாம் புரியாது, நான் கச்சேரி மாத்திரம் ரசிப்பேன் நிறைய பேர் சொல்வா. But I could also sense the rapt attention with which all of us, even though it's the end of the season and people are tired with, the ears are tired with so much of music, but I could sense the raptness and interest with which she held all of us. So a big kudos to that also. So I'm sure if we have a bigger session of 2 or 3 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, I think we can sit through that also. My faith is reinstated today that we can take enrichment. So we are all lucky today here. The people who were not here missed out. So thank you so much. I think Radhaji will. There are a couple of things which I have to pick up some problem with her. Is that in terms of the instrument not having an instrument having infinite scope is something also which is slightly controversial. In terms of that also we will discuss in the future. Probably what Balachandar sir meant is that the musicality of the musician, the instrument is a limited physical medium. Just like the voice, I cannot sing 6 octaves, right? I cannot sing 10 octaves. So everything in nature. So limitation is not necessarily a bad thing. That's also something which we have to understand. ஒரு குறை இருக்குன்னா அது குறை இல்லை. நம்ம லிமிட்டேஷனை குறையா நினைக்க கூடாது. A limitation is a definition. A violin can do certain things, a flute can do certain things, the human voice can do certain things. But the human mind, in terms of its musical imagination, is infinite. That is, without any limitation. So when there is no, I personally feel, with all respect, is that it is the human mind and the music which is without limitation. The instrument seeks to capture that infinity within its limitation. And it doesn't come short. It doesn't lose face. In fact, the greater the limitation, the greater the level of achievement. Right? A keyboard has 64 keys. Tomorrow you'll come up with a keyboard which has 128 keys. That doesn't make the music any bigger. If you can play on a 4 keys keyboard, you can generate the same magic. That is greatness. That is musical achievement. So we have to re-examine the idea of instrument limitation in the positive sense also. We will also have chance to discuss this, because every instrument is special because of its limitation. If we accept the fact that limitation is not a bad word, that it is a fact of existence, we realize that limitation is the reason why we excel. Because in trying to overcome the limitation is where human endeavor is the crux of human endeavor. Actually, in all fields of art lie there. That the canvas is this size. If you look at a Rajasthani miniature painting, it's 2 inch by 2 inch. Or if you go to the Salarjung Museum, he has written the entire Quran on a single grain of rice. So the limitation provides for the infinite expression of man, is what I would slightly beg to differ. I think that is what Balachandar sir would have meant, because, you know, look at how I've heard a radio program of Balachandar sir where he has played only Sri Ragam for 45 minutes. He didn't even have time to play the Kriti. This is in a radio program. They got so frustrated, I heard later. Is that? So 45 minutes of Sri Ragam. And Sri, nama vandu chinna ragam solrom. Adhu romba scope illenu. So he's a person who has gone beyond the scope of many things which we assume to be limitations. So thank you so much for so many insights. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that value addition through your wonderful points. Now we can go to the question answer sessions. Any questions pertaining to today's subject, please don't go away from the subject which has been taken today. And please keep the questions short so that we can have the benefit of a greater and longer answer.
It was a wonderful performance. Thanks a lot. I am Krishnamurthy. I have in Trichy about 30 years back, I heard Rangarajan, professor, physics professor at National College. He was telling about Veena. He said Veena is the best instrument because it cuts the seventh harmony. The place where you pluck, it is something closer to 1/7 of the total distance. This I told, but I have not got it corroborated by anybody. Do you have any idea about that?
Yes, it is. You are right. This part of the Veena is called the speaking length. The speaking length oda exact half la vandu upper sa varudhu. In the upper sa till the bridge oda center la the Tarasthai Sajjam comes. And the meter place is exactly in between, in the seventh place, like he says, in between this entire idhula, in the center is the place. But now, as Sriramji mentioned, we are finding more places and seeing more because of the use of the pickup and other devices that enhance the sound. We are experimenting on different positions to pluck. For instance, let me show you the tonal variation from avlo range irukku. So depending on the context and the necessity, if you want a warm sound, you pluck closer to here, like for instance Ragamudam. And when you are playing a fast swaram, for more clarity and shorter note. So the note is longer when you pluck here. So many of these theories that we all have been believing, because of the advent of science, and we are also adapting a lot of our playing techniques to explore and stretch a little bit the boundaries and giving more tonal shades. Ore edathila meetna ore sound varum. Ad mari we are doing a lot of other things. Nowadays we are trying to use the third finger also to pluck, to give more speed. So adha madri we are experimenting. But what he says is true.
Namaskaram, beautiful presentation. I think you filled in a gap in my understanding, because I understood that the guitar is an evolution of the sitar. And this, when you talk about ekta dota, do you think that the sitar then is a variation of this ekta dota? And what do you think it might, if so, what do you think it might signify? That's the first part of my question.
Okay.
The second part is, if this is the case, if the guitar is an evolution, do you think the Veena can be modified to include some extra strings and bring out the harmonic chords as well, and perhaps be an even more sophisticated version of the guitar, where it can play much more melodious lines along with chords?
Thank you. String instruments with frets fall under a group called zithers. The sitar is not an Indian instrument. It came to us when the Mughals invaded us because of the Persian and Mughal invasion, along with other instruments that our culture imbibed. Sitar was something that came to us. Veena is a much older instrument. Some Veena players, coming to the second part of your question, have tried using a sympathetic set of strings below the main strings to make it more colorful. But as Sri Ramji said, the silence of the Veena, if you don't think of it as a limitation, is what makes the music more meaningful. So if you're going to fill up that gap, adding more strings and making it bright, then it would be some other instrument. It won't be the Veena. So each instrument has an intrinsic character to its sound and to its expression. You can enhance its intrinsic quality. You can add a little bit, but the entire changing of harmony to it might not. I have heard Veenas with sympathetic strings. They sound a bit like sitars. So when I say that silence gives you the time to internalize that phrase. I don't have to. Many people say the two important part of music is melody and rhythm, but I always feel it is sound and silence. So the silence there definitely helps you internalize that sound. And as he says, that silence is the quality of the instrument. It's not a limitation. So I think we can work more on making how to make better music with this and how to increase the sound, how to get better Veenas done and all of that. And sitar definitely comes from a different family. It's one octave higher than the Veena. It's, I think, great grand niece of the grandmother Veena.
Hello ma'am, thank you for this wonderful session first of all. You were talking about dismantled Veenas which are being used currently. There have been notions that dismantling a Veena is anti-Vedic. So I just wanted to understand whether it is right or wrong to use dismantled Veenas.
In our Advaita philosophy, we believe, as people who believe in spirituality and to a certain extent what we call as Sanatana Dharma or Hinduism, that everything, every part, every atom has God. So we say Brahma resides here, Lakshmi resides here, Vishnu resides here, and a few other gods reside in different parts of the Veena. If you dismantle, they are going to have their space and they are going to, enjoy their space a little bit and come together. They're still the gods. Every part of an instrument has God in it. So no God is going to get angry and say, how come you dismantled me away from Brahma? I always was with him in that part where the Veena joins. So these are all things that put us in a box. If something improves our scope, if something improves the scope of an instrument, I think we should try it. Unless you want to take it part by part and then fix it. If only the decorative parts, like this is a decoration, this is a decoration, this you can take apart. Because as a musician who travels for more than half the year, I feel when you check in a Veena into a flight, all those Brahmas and Saraswatis and Lakshmi, I know they're all inside in that fiberglass case. But every time there's a thud and that somehow they don't seem to communicate with these guys who pull out these bags and just throw it on the conveyor belt. The gods are all inside with the fragile tags, right? So sometimes the instrument comes out broken. So I think the gods will be happier if they are not broken and they're all intact and you can play beautiful music with it. So in this century at least, let's break out of all of that and see focus more on how we can popularize, how we can do to Veena what Pandit Ravi Shankar did to sitar. How can we put it on the world globe? Every time I check in, everybody in every airport asks me, oh, is that a sitar? And then I stop and say, like a small mudra like them, no, this is the Veena, this is the 7-string instrument, this is the older. Every time I do a mini like them, because I want everyone to know our Veena. And more we say, you shouldn't take it out of the puja room. Brahma will get angry if you remove the birde. I think we are putting it more and more into a box. Let's come out and as a team together, put this on the world map and let everyone know about this instrument.
Thank you.
I am asking this question as Rasika in the beginning stage. Can you tell something about the influence of Veena instrument on the Mahakavi Subramanya Bharati? Just for reference. When he is very fond of Kannan, but regarding the instrument he says, Nallador Veenai Seide, Adai Nalam Kata Purudiyil Erivadundo. One more song, Veenayadi Nee Enakku Mevum Viral Naan Unakku. Something, just as a Rasika and something, what could be the influence regarding this Veena instrument?
It's a very endearing instrument in the sense, the reason why these poets and all these people were inspired, at this juncture I would like to add, when a baby is in a mother's womb, it has been scientifically proven that the sound of a veena somehow reaches out to the baby instantly. That is why in all the Seemandams they ask for a veena kacheri. All the pregnant women listen to a lot of veena music. Something about the twang of the instrument, and if it is properly tuned and properly played, communicates to the baby inside, and the growth of the baby is supposed to be good. Adhe madri, it has a very, when we play on the instrument, we use all these, for that matter, any stringed instrument, even violin, we use all these acupressure points. In the nerve ending irukilya, idella nammaloda acupressure points. Idella thana நம்ம குண்டலினி சக்தியில குண்டலினி யோகால ஸ்டிமுலேட் பண்றோம். இது அந்த யோகா பண்ணாமையே நம்ம வீணை வாசிக்கும் போதோ வயலின் வாசிக்கும் போதோ இந்த nerve ending we stimulate it, which in turn stimulates the pituitary gland. So that is why it is called Nada Yoga. And the madri, there are several, talking in modern terms, நம்ம Kundalini Shakti nu sonna, if people don't understand, playing an instrument like this is called a psychosomatic motor activity. Why? The motor activity happens on the right, Taalam da 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 goes. Psychosomatic, you are sitting in a posture, you are remembering your posture, you are remembering the frets, you are remembering the grammar of the ragam, you are remembering the thalam cycle, you are remembering the sahityam, you are remembering what prayogam should come, you are remembering how much to pull, how much not to pull. You are doing 7 things at the same time, which enhances your bandwidth of your brain. So the students who learn to play a music instrument have more brain retention power, they are doing better in their studies. This has been proven. So if everybody should learn to play a music instrument, it enhances their personality and it relaxes them, and also scientifically it really gives a very good thing to your health because you're stimulating all the nerve ending positions. So idanaala da maybe Bharadiyar and several other people, Raghavendra Swami, ellarume, they have sung or played the veena because of its and violin dhanur veena. Like always when I say veena is so divine, my husband Sri Kumaresh will always say this is also veena, this is dhanur veena. So every string instrument is veena, and any string instrument that is played definitely stimulates these nerve endings and is very good for the body. No wonder such poets have sung about it. Thank you, Radhaji. Thank you, Bhaskarji, for making this possible and communicating the need to appreciate our interest for these instruments. Thank you, Balu, for really helping me out with this PowerPoint presentation, and a friend of mine, Vidhya, who helped me make this. Thank you all for coming.